What's up, you guys? Teddy Striker here, and this Saturday, the pound-for-pound king, Islam Makhachev, returns to try and get a second belt in the welterweight division. He's going up against the welterweight champion, Della Maddalena, and because Islam Makhachev is the best lightweight of all time in the UFC, with the most title defenses, he's the pound-for-pound king. He is one of the most skilled fighters in the history of the sport. He is obviously favored to beat Della Maddalena, but in this video, we're not going to be talking about how Islam can beat him because he's a favorite. We're going to be talking about how the underdog, Della Maddalena, can beat Islam Makhachev, the pound-for-pound king, and how he can retain his belt. So I formed the game plan for Jack to beat Islam Makhachev this Saturday. Obviously, he's going to need to do a lot more, but with these keys to victory, I believe that he has a strong chance of beating Islam Makhachev. But with all that being said, let's get right into the keys to victory I have for Della Maddalena to beat Islam Makhachev. And the first key to victory is so Islam Makhachev is a southpaw fighter, meaning that his right foot and his right hand is forward. And when southpaws fight other orthodox fighters, they have to try and keep their right foot on the outside of their opponent's lead foot, their left foot, so that they're away from their opponent's right hand and all their power attacks. And they have this exit route to avoid their opponents by constantly moving to their lead side. So southpaws are really comfortable moving to their right, but if you cut them off and you take that side away from them, it becomes a lot easier to track them down and hit them, because Islam, in a lot of his fights, he's shown to be very elusive, and a lot of that is because he's able to move to his right side and avoid the big shots of his opponents. So I think one of the main ways JDM can get to Islam is to stop him from exiting to his right and shutting off that side. But now, how does he actually go about doing this? Well, I think we've seen it very recently with Alex Pereira when he took on Magomed Ankalaev, who was also a southpaw who loved to exit or get himself out of danger using his right side. So Pereira, what he did was he used, obviously he's got some devastating leg kicks, and JDM isn't really known for his leg kicks, but he could implement this into his game. But using the calf kicks to his southpaw opponent to force him to change his guard and move away from the kick could be a good option for him. But also using the head kicks from the southpaw stance, because Della does fight out of both stances. He could use a head kick to stop Islam in his tracks, and the leg kicks as well to further stop Islam in his tracks. But moving on to another key to victory I have for Della, and that's going to be Islam is probably the best grappler in the UFC. In my opinion, he is the best grappler in the UFC currently, and he is so dominant, and he gets all his opponents to the ground. So I do believe that at some point he is going to get Della down to the ground. So I could sit here and say, he's got to sprawl, he's got to do this, he's got to do X, Y, and Z. But at the end of the day, I think he will eventually get down on the ground, even if he maybe finishes Islam via strikes in the first round. I do believe that before that he'll get JDM down to the ground. But regardless, when JDM does get down to the ground, I believe that one of the keys to him getting up and not get submitted is to make sure he always controls the hands of Islam Makhachev. And even when Islam is trying to get him down, if he's able to separate that grip from Islam, it's going to make it a lot harder. Obviously, Islam has got the judo, but a lot of that comes from Islam baiting his opponents into making a mistake. For example, he'll attack them with a knee, and then they'll try to respond with something, and that's when he has his most successful judo throws or trips. But if he can stay disciplined and just focus on separating instead of hitting him back with a knee to the body, you'll have a lot more success at avoiding getting taken down with a judo takedown. So ultimately, make sure you're controlling the hands of Islam and keeping them away from each other so that he doesn't have that much success controlling you or taking you down. But moving on to the next key to victory I have for Della Maddalena, and that's going to be one of the most significant moments that Dustin Poirier had against Islam Makhachev was when he was striking off the clinch or off grappling exchanges, because Islam Makhachev would often look to continue to hold him, like maybe Dustin Poirier will work his way back up to the feet, but Islam Makhachev would still try to grab onto him. But eventually, Dustin Poirier was able to get some space and land a nasty elbow that cut Islam Makhachev really badly, and he still has a scar from that fight. And I think that this is something that Jack Della could definitely implement into his game. It's something that he's actually done in the past, and how he was able to knock out Gilbert Burns, because he knew that Gilbert Burns would reshoot a takedown after, Jack got back up to his feet. And that is something that Islam might try to do. If you defend some shots and he's got you up against the fence, he's going to be looking to reshoot takedowns on you. So don't hesitate to blast him with a knee or an uppercut or an elbow as soon as you get some space off of him. So that way he thinks twice about reshooting takedowns on you, and he lets go of you and focuses on defending himself instead of trying to get a hold of you. Moving on to the next key to victory I have for JDM, and that's going to be JDM is a switch stance fighter, meaning that he can fight in the orthodox stance and the southpaw stance. And this specific move can be done in both stances, but I feel like it will be more effective if JDM is in the southpaw stance with his right leg forward and his right hand forward. And this is a combo that works because Islam loves to counter his opponents with his right hook. As we've talked about earlier, he's got that right side in front of his opponent's lead leg, and he's able to kind of escape out of that direction, and he's able to throw punches out of that direction as he's exiting. And sometimes he just doesn't really exit, like take an angle to his right. He just like moves backwards and throws a right hook, or just simply moves backward with his hand extended out in the air. And I feel like that is a perfect opening to throw a double jab to a backhand. This was actually the best punch that Dustin Poirier landed on Islam Makhachev in round 5. He starts a combo with a double jab, and then he clips him with a clean right hand as Islam goes for that check hook as he's just moving backwards in a straight line. And it was the best punch that Dustin Poirier had landed in the whole fight. But Dustin Poirier is a southpaw. Now I want to show you guys some examples of this combo actually working from the orthodox stance to attack southpaws, or from the southpaw stance to attack southpaws. But in this game, can absolutely use this to win. And by the way, nothing against Adrian Bronner. These are just the best examples that I could find against or from a southpaw fighter fighting an orthodox, where one guy was throwing a lead hook and the other guy was like throwing a bit of a 1-2. But regardless, moving on to the next key trick I have for JDM, and that's going to be I feel like Islam Makhachev is a great fighter when he has a lot of space to operate, and usually he's the one that is a bit of the advancing fighter. And I think that JDM in this one, he's going to have to take control of that cage and push Islam Makhachev back, where he can do his best work and really let his hands go and have more space to sprawl forward those takedowns. And also, if you defend the takedowns, that way he won't be able to reshoot on you like he does when he's got his opponents close to the fence. Also, I felt like in the first Volkanovski fight with Islam, obviously Islam has improved a lot since then, but in that fight, it seemed like he was a little bit jittery when he was getting pressured by Volk. And even against Poirier, one of his first reactions to dealing with that pressure is to grab like that tie clinch. But sometimes to deal with that, like Alex Pereira did against Israel Adesanya, is to just punch your opponent through that clinch. Like if he's going to grab you, he's going to like try to wrap his hands around your head. His hands are gonna come at like a bit of like kind of like hooks. They're gonna come around your head and around your guard. So punch with like straight shots, like straight jabs or crosses or even uppercuts to catch him as he's going for that clinch. And those are essentially like free shots to the face because he's leaving himself completely unguarded, and those are some heavy shots to be taking, especially from a welterweight. But moving on to the next key trick I have for JDM, and that's going to be This key to victory is all about getting Islam to open up and then catch him with something that he's not really expecting. And we've seen some of his opponents actually have success by briefly doing this against him with Dustin Poirier. First, let's take a look at an example. So here Dustin puts up a high guard, telling Islam that he's in a defensive posture. Islam throws out a light jab, and he sees that Poirier simply defends it, so he sees Poirier with the high guard again. He commits to a longer jab this time, but Poirier pulls and attempts to counter, but he's slightly out of range because I believe he throws a bit of a looping punch instead of a straight shot, and that just misses Islam just barely. Here's an example from Islam's fight with Volkanovski. Volkanovski drops his hands, basically showing Islam that he doesn't have a guard and that he's vulnerable to being hit. And Islam takes a bait. He goes in for a jab, but Volkanovski knew it was coming because he set up the trap and he counters with a right hook that lands. It doesn't land clean because Islam still is able to get his left hand in the way, but it still is an effective draw and counter from Volkanovski. But how exactly can JDM use this against Islam Makhachev? Well, when Islam Makhachev throws his backhand, his left hand, he does tend to drop his right hand, and he leaves his chin wide open to get clipped. And JDM actually has shown an ability to counter the backhand of his opponents with a short hook that I think could be the key to opening up Pandora's box and being able to beat Islam Makhachev. But obviously you put yourself in danger of getting hit, and also you need to find enough power to really be able to hurt your opponent with that right hook. But let's take a look at some examples. Firstly, Islam Makhachev here is taking on Renato Moicano, and he's swinging that left hand, and as you can see, the right hand is gone down. It's not covering up his chin. And now let's take a look at how JDM actually has dealt with this when he was a southpaw and when Gilbert Burns was an orthodox fighter. Firstly, he's able to draw Gilbert Burns into throwing a punch because he's moving his left hand away from his face, kind of giving out the impression that he's unguarded, and Gilbert Burns goes for a punch. But at the same time, Della is able to slip the punch of Gilbert Burns and come back with a right hook that lands on the chin of Gilbert Burns, but there's not too much impact on the punch, and you can tell that JDM didn't really put too much into that punch, but it is a clean punch. And if he's able to bait Islam Makhachev into throwing that left hand and, slip it and throw a left hook while he's really rotating his hips and driving his shoulder and everything into that left hook, I think he could do some serious damage to Islam and potentially even drop him. But moving on to the next key trick I have for JDM, and that's going to be Islam Makhachev's last two wins has come from a Darce choke, and he submitted both black belts in Dustin Poirier and Renato Moicano. And why he was able to submit them was because when he got them down to the ground, and when they were looking to scramble back up to their feet, it's like they kind of had their heads pointing towards him, like they were wrestling head first into him, and then he attacked their neck, and he eventually found a Darce choke on both of them, and this is one of his best submissions in the UFC. And JDM does have a habit of going head first into a scramble, sometimes when he's on the bottom trying to get up. And if he does this against Islam, I mean, we could see a quick submission, and I really don't think JDM should do this. I think he might even be better off going to his back and looking to find another escape that is a little bit safer, that buys himself a little bit more time. Because if he just go head first, I mean, Islam is going to lash that up really quickly. He's done it against guys who you could argue were better grapplers than JDM, so you got to be careful. Do not go in head first. Moving on to the last key trick I have for JDM to beat Islam, and that's going to be I truly believe that Della Maddalena has some of the best combinations in all of MMA. I mean, he's up there with Peter Yan, and the way he's able to mix in some body shots, I mean, he's looking like a prime Errol Spence when he's digging to that body. And I believe those body shots are going to be key in this one. Those head-body combinations are going to be key to really shred Islam Makhachev's defense when you mix in the pressure, when you mix in the fact that we're going to be cutting off his elite side, when we're going to be defending the grappling, when we're going to be doing all of that. Now, this is what matters. This is what scores the home run. This is what ends the fight, and it's those nasty combinations that where you mix up the head and body and you just dig for that liver, dig for those organs of Islam Makhachev, and you really put a stamp on the fight and become the pound for pound king. But that's all I've got for how I think Jack Della Maddalena can beat Islam Makhachev. Obviously, he's going to need to do a lot more to be the pound for pound king, but I think he can do it. This is not my prediction for this fight. This is simply me building a game plan for JDM to win. If you're interested in seeing my prediction for the main event of UFC 322 and all the other fights on the main card, stay tuned for a video dropping very soon. But with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. God bless, and I will see you in the next one.